I'm from New York, so New York's my home. I kind of feel like an Eskimo on the island of Manhattan. I mean, that's where I'm from. So in a way, it's very comfortable. I'm very used to the density of it and the different, texture of all the different cultures and people here. And actually, I think New York is a very spiritual place. There's so many people practicing so many, forms. I mean, just in Tompkins Square Park nearby, we have the Hare Krishna tree, where the guy who started the Hare Krishna movement had his enlightenment experience under the tree. So, having said all of that, I mean, having lived here for many years, I'm a little bit tired of the density of it, and I'm interested in spending more time in natural settings. Well, I mean, I guess the most significant thing for me was through shamanism and psychedelic experience, and then other types of visionary experience, reaching a point of realization that is very similar to what the Vedanta philosophy talks about, that ultimately there's one consciousness that kind of explores its creative potential by creating all these separate identities, who then have free will and independence and autonomy and the capacity to love and create and grow. So I think recognizing that the individual person, body, mind is really just a reference point for consciousness, is probably the most powerful thing that I understood. And realizing that if enough people reach that understanding, then we have the potential to recreate our society on different values. Well, I mean, I think the economic system in itself is designed to create misery and competition and artificial scarcity. And beyond reforming the economic system, ultimately we need to create a different system for exchanging value. And so in the work we've been doing with Reality Sandwich, we've looked at that from a number of angles, and we published a few books. One is called What Comes After Money. It's an anthology of essays by different thinkers on the subject. And another one is Sacred Economics by Charles Eisenstein, where basically they're just looking at, if there are ways to create different instruments for exchanging value that imprint different behavior patterns and modes of being. And ultimately, if we want to survive as a species and become sustainable, we're going to have to transition into those. I never anticipated anything traumatic was going to happen on the day. I see it more as the hinge point in a shift that is something like a 20-year shift. Actually, I've been very taken with the ideas of an Aztec lineage holder, who's been writing how the shift from, according to their ancient culture, the shift from the fifth sun to the sixth sun it takes about 20 years. So this is like the midpoint of the transition. And they talk about it as a transition from a sun of light to a sun of darkness. And during its sun of light, which would be the last thousands of years, the focus is more on material things, objective reality, rational thought. But as we transition into a sun of darkness, we go back into more like the dream world, where reality becomes more psychically available and more dreamlike. And I definitely feel that seems to be happening to myself and many people that I know. And so I can continue. I think that opening to the psyche is going to continue to take place over the next years, as we see the mainstream structure of our civilization begin to shake down and crumble. My biggest inspiration. Well, I guess I really see myself as an artist, and I think art has probably been the biggest inspiration for me. Um, Ranging from my father's paintings to my mother's writings to the works that they loved, which were the Beats and the abstract expressionists and literature, Henry James and Virginia Woolf, and all abstract, yeah, all sorts of artistic inspiration, where I really see that that's almost like the goal of our human existence, is to be creators. And when we make this transition in civilizational paradigm, I think people will have a much greater opportunity to fully embody their creative spirit.
Okay, last question. I really like this term that you coined, spiritual emergency, because
Yeah.
it's exactly how it feels, when you're going through that. So, to anyone who may be having a spiritual emergency at the moment, what would you say to them?
Spiritual emergency. Let's see. Well, I think it's a positive thing. because most people are kind of like robots or zombies in our culture. They have been, they don't realize how programmed and conditioned their thinking, feeling, and willing mechanisms are. So they've just sort of, since early childhood or birth almost, have kind of been indoctrinated into a way of being and thinking about the world and the way of thinking about relationships and work and authority and so on. So a spiritual emergency is really your authentic self seeking to break through the boundaries of this conditioning, and you first kind of experience that as anxiety or suffering or pain, and rather than turning away from it, you probably have to like turn deeper into it. And then what's very helpful are all sorts of different modalities for kind of widening the aperture of consciousness, because ultimately the solution of the spiritual emergency on one level is to get to a transpersonal or trans-egoic state of awareness. So you're no longer kind of fixated on your own personal needs and impulses, but you recognize that you as an individual are embedded in this larger cosmic manifestation, and that actually your role is to be part of this evolutionary awakening process.
Beautiful.